I'm curious about if there are any stories, or like just when you think specifically about pastors or people in some kind of like Christian ministry or setting, I wonder if you could possibly speak to common mistakes or common things that people don't pay attention to.
Yeah. I find that one of the common mistakes that clergy may trip on is paying taxes. For those in ministry, ordained, or commission, we have this dual tax status. So for income tax, federal income tax, we are considered employees. But for Social Security, we are considered self-employed and have to pay Social Security tax as a self-employed person. And that can be a healthy chunk of money to pay as a self-employed person at 15.3%. And so if one is starting out in ministry and doesn't get that set up properly, there can be some serious financial complications and penalties. There can be penalties for the individual, for an employer who doesn't, if the employer tries to pay the Social Security for the minister, it can be a huge mess. So I would say that's probably one of the most important things to get straight as a minister, is to get your taxes in order right from the beginning.
Okay, that's good.
I have another thing that comes to mind is racking up student debt, though. Yeah, and it's really easy to do. But one of the challenges is that ministry is not one of the high-paying professions. And so when we get out of seminary, it might even be a second career job, that when you get out of seminary, the job that you get doesn't even pay as much as the one you had that you left in industry to go into ministry because you felt called to do that. So it may be lower paying, you've racked up all the student debt, and there's not enough income to pay the mortgage, save for retirement, pay the student debt, pay for the kids' needs. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And so if it's possible to find ways to limit the amount of student debt, that's a good thing. Whether an employer, a church can help, scholarships, pay as you go, and maybe only taking, a class, a semester, a class, a quarter, so that you can just pay for that class and not rack up a bunch of debt. In the long run, that's going to be helpful if you can minimize that student debt.
All right, thank you. Just the idea of talking about money. For you, I wonder if you can talk about your journey of starting to be comfortable talking about money. This is me assuming, or have you just always been comfortable talking about money, or like did you have a path that you followed that was helpful in helping you grow the muscle? I don't know. Let's talk about
money. I think knowing one's money story is real important. Where does money fit into your life? And knowing as a child, what did you first learn about money? When one was growing up, were there arguments about money? Was there always enough money? Did you have to get a job as a teenager in order to help bring money into the household? Did you get an allowance? Didn't you get an allowance? Were you bribed with money? All of those things play into how we feel and understand money as adults. And so oftentimes when people are courting, going out and thinking about marriage, their money stories are so different, and how they understand money, is money, how is money power in the relationship? And if they're not if they haven't taken the time to talk about that, there could be some real money issues in the relationship. My money story is, I guess my first job was at a gas station, pumping gas, but the second job was at a bank. It was a summer intern job in Seattle, and I learned how to be a bank teller. And so at that point, seeing, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a vault, it kind of demystified money. To see a stack of $100 bills or a bundle of hundreds or bundles of 20 and have money in stacks of $20,000 and $50,000. It just kind of demystified it for me. I could see what it looked like. I thought at one point I wanted to go into banking, and so my undergrad degree was in business and management. But then after that, I felt a call to ministry. And growing up, I always thought that there was enough money in my household. If there was some tension among my parents, it was mostly about money. And until my mom got her own checking account and she could spend her money any way she wanted. And then the arguments about money were over. But then I went into ministry instead of going into banking. While I was working for the benefits board of the American Baptist Churches, I decided to go down the track and see if I could get my designation as a certified financial planner professional. And I was successful at doing that. And it gives me great joy to be able to talk with people about the struggles around money. And they may not always be struggles, but just, how to answering questions about how to plan for their financial future, whether it's retirement or school or grandkids or, I really do like demystifying money. It's not, it can be complicated, but most of the time it's not that complicated. So we try to, the basics are not that complicated. They may take a lot of discipline. Spend less than you make, but the basic principles are pretty simple.
There could be like a million more questions I'd like to ask you, but I'm curious if there is anything we haven't talked about today that you feel we should talk about before the end of this call.
Well, just to reiterate the two things. One is that for an emergency fund, you need to save somewhere between 3 and 6 months of money to pay expenses. If there's just one source of income coming into the household, rule of thumb is to save enough money that you could pay your expenses for 6 months. If there's two incomes coming into the household, you may be able to get by with having enough money saved in your emergency fund to pay expenses for 3 months. If the jobs are in the same industry, what we have found out during COVID, if both people are in the theater industry and the theaters go down, then they're both out of a job. If one is in costumes and the other is in lighting, they were both out of a job. So then in those situations, it's probably helpful to have 6 months of savings, of money saved to pay the bills. Secondly, that it takes a really, really long time to save enough money for retirement so that when you retire, whatever that looks like, whatever that means, that you can live with the same quality of life, the same lifestyle as you had before retirement. It can take a really long time. And so it's really important to start as soon as possible. In your 20s is great if you can save 10% toward retirement. If you need to start in your 30s, do it then, because it's going to take you 25 to 30 years of saving enough money. And so if you can get started as soon as possible, that's going to be helpful. And spend less than you make. That's it. Those 3 things. Emergency fund, spend less than you make, save for retirement.
Right. All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, Thank you so, so much again.
My pleasure, Gemma. Thank you for asking.
Of course. And thank you for saying yes.